Chapter 33 Phoenix Cry Lantern Festival. Within the inner part of the palace was the fourth prince's study. The fourth prince was sitting with his eyelids half closed as he quietly listened to the savage marquise's report. Master, no news has come from the border suppression marquise. The army continues to hold the same area, and no reply has come from Master's letters, reported the savage marquise respectfully. The fourth prince slowly opened his eyes. Within them was the glimmer of grim coldness. What a reckless, obstinate old man. I gave him this much time, yet he still treats me like some pushover. This Long Chen truly doesn't know greatness. He still refuses to surrender to Prince after this many years. Truly hateful, to the point of deserving 1,000 deaths, said the savage marquise ruthlessly. The fourth prince glanced at him and said, I know about the past grievances between you and Long Chen. If it hadn't been for that punch of his, then you would have had a high chance of advancing to the tendon transformation realm. But Long Chen strength doesn't just lie in his martial might. Otherwise, I wouldn't view him so importantly. Unfortunately, he's too stubborn and can't be used by me. Since he can't become one of mine, let him become a dead man. The savage marquise rejoiced when he heard this. Master, do you have a plan? Right now isn't the time to deal with him. However, he has indeed wasted so many years of my effort. So first, kill his only son. Count it as him paying some interest, said the fourth prince indifferently. Long Chen? How should he be killed? Asked the savage marquise, somewhat puzzled. The current Long Chen counted as one of the Alchemist Guild's people, and the rumors reported that he was close to Grandmaster Xianxia. Even a prince couldn't avoid the Alchemist Guild's punishment. I've already fixed that matter, so you don't need to worry about it. Just quietly gather your forces. We're about to make some big moves. Don't forget not to attract any undue attention, ordered the fourth prince coldly. Yes, master. Don't worry. I'll definitely make sure that there's not even the slightest leak, promised the savage marquise hastily. His current strength was just at the blood condensation realm, so his martial might wasn't very outstanding. And it was exactly because he wasn't overly eye-catching that the fourth prince gave him such a high position. He was extremely loyal and devoted, and he was also very meticulous with how he handled things. He hadn't made any slip-ups in all the years he had worked for him. After the savage marquise left, the fourth prince looked at the books on his shelves. A long while later, he sighed. Long Chen, is it worth the trouble? So much of my sincerity over the years was unable to move you. Don't blame me for being vicious. Boom! Another explosion rang out within his body, and Long Chen's eyes popped open. His eyes shone brightly like the stars, yet his gaze was as sharp as a sword. 7 cyclones were slowly revolving within his dantian. A pleased smile appeared on Long Chen's face. He had spent 7 full days focused only on cultivating, advancing 4 levels. Such a speed would definitely shock and frighten anyone else. Yet, Long Chen still wasn't satisfied with it. Originally, he had thought that as he condensed more cyclones, his cultivation would become faster since he could absorb more energy, but he quickly found out that his assumption had been wrong. Every new cyclone had been harder to condense than the last. The amount of spiritual ki needed shot up exponentially. The 4th cyclone had only required 6 hours to form, while the 7th cyclone had required 3 full days. That was basically the sum of all of the 3 cyclones before it. But Long Chen was still pleased when he noticed that his meridians had become even firmer as he reached the 7th heaven stage. However, he was still unable to use Split the Heavens, but this didn't disappoint him. In fact, it made him even more excited. This meant that Split the Heavens was an exceptionally powerful battle skill. For him to have used some random pill to exchange for such a high-class battle skill had definitely been worth it. Originally, he had been planning on going back there and bribing that blood condensation expert with more medicinal pills for some higher-grade battle skills. But now that Xu Yao had given him the breaking wind fist and the flame cloud palm, he had enough. The two of them were both high mortal class battle skills. Most likely, only the third floor of the battle skill pavilion would hold battle skills of that level. Battle skills on that level were things that even that blood condensation guard would not have the qualifications to learn. It was not the case the more battle skills you learned, the better. Unless martial artists were pushed to their limit, they normally wouldn't use them. That was because battle skills used too much spiritual ki. Ordinary ki condensation cultivators could only use a low-grade moral battle skill once. After using one once, the remaining spiritual ki would be insufficient to use it a second time. So unless you could defeat your enemy in one move, no one would waste their spiritual ki like that. Furthermore, the higher the class of the battle skill, the more spiritual ki that would be required to use it. High mortal class battle skills were normally reserved for blood condensation cultivators to use. Only they had the required spiritual ki for such a frightening cost. But of course, Long Chen wasn't ordinary. His spiritual ki was stored within his Feng Fu star. By Long Chen's calculations, he could use a high mortal class battle skill 7 times. But if he were to send his Feng Fu star's spiritual ki into his 7 cyclones in order to produce his absolute maximum power, then he would only be able to use a high mortal class battle skill once. He wouldn't be able to use it a second time, even if he forced himself to death. Currently, Long Chen still could not condense a second star. This 9-StarHegemonBodyArt required that only after the first star became a true star could the second star be condensed. But Long Chen still didn't know how to make his star a true star. He also didn't know what the 9-star transformations in his memories were. He really was becoming more and more puzzled as he progressed on his cultivation path with the 9-StarHegemonBodyArt. Therefore, he could only continue forming more cyclones for now. "Young master, can I enter?" Bao Er's clear voice came from outside. "Enter." Bao Er entered with a set of clothes in her hands. She laughed. "Young master, today is the Phoenix Cry Lantern Festival. Mrs. Long has sent me to make you presentable." She had him sit down properly while she washed his face and combed his hair. Long Chen laughed. "Is this really so important?" "The madam has already said that young master is now 16, and is the age for getting married. She told me to properly dress you. If any family's pretty daughter sees you..." "You understand." Bauer laughed. "No way. My mom really thinks it's that urgent?" Long Chen was speechless. Fadiu and the others were all 17, but they hadn't gotten married. "Of course it's urgent. I worry about my grandchildren." Mrs. Long walked in and looked at Long Chen. "The matter of Meng Qi can be handled slowly and considered a long-term goal. But you also need to have short-term goals. It's called insurance. I suggest you find a suitable young lady and go get some kids, while also pursuing Meng Qi." "What?" Long Chen couldn't believe his ears. "What? For a man to have multiple wives and concubines is common. Isn't it fine to just reserve Meng Qi as your first wife?" Mrs. Long spoke as if that was as it should be. "Are you serious?" "Of course, but you can't tell Meng Qi about it at the beginning. Once you two become closer, she'll naturally agree to it." Long Chen blinked. Even this was fine? "Mom, Dad hasn't bothered to communicate with us in this many years. Does he also have wives and concubines outside?" "Don't say so much nonsense. But it would be absolutely fine for your father to have some extra wives or concubines," she chided. but a guilty, ashamed glimmer flashed through her eyes. I'm just joking, Mom. Don't worry. If there are any suitable women during the Lantern Festival, I'll bring back a few for you. Seeing his mom wasn't very happy, he joked. Who do you think you are to bring a few home? Let me tell you, don't try any fake smiles with your mom. You have to properly remember this matter. Understood? She solemnly warned. Fine. I'll act however you tell me to, promised Long Chen. Inside, he didn't feel that it was quite right, but he didn't say that out loud to his mother. After making himself presentable, Long Chen put on a blue robe. It was the perfect size, and after putting it on, he looked like a whole new person. Sword-like eyebrows and glowing with health. Although he wasn't outstandingly handsome, Bao unceasingly praised him. Don't worry, madam. How many women could resist our young master? Ah, don't praise him too much. Although Mrs. Long said this, she was pleased inside. She was filled with pride looking at her handsome son. Okay, it's time to go. Mrs. Long pushed Long Chen out the door. Mom, the sun is still so high. It's going to be a while before it darkens, Long Chen helplessly pointed out as he looked at the western sun that had barely begun to descend. Bad child. You don't know what it means to prepare early? First, get a good spot, and only then can you increase your chances. Quick, go. After saying this, she closed the gates on him. Long Chen rolled his eyes. It wasn't like he was setting up a stall for business. Why did he need to be the first to occupy a good position? But since he was already driven out, he still left. He saw countless people bustling in front of their homes, hanging lanterns. Seeing Long Chen, a youth joked, "Brother, you really are early." "What do you know? The early bird gets the worm," retorted Long Chen. "Ha! True. Many thanks for the reminder, big brother. I'll go change now." That person ran back into his house. What a kid. Only 13, yet he wants to play with women. His mouth twitched. The children these days really were maturing too early. He had also truly come out too soon, and when others saw that he had come out so early, it only led to more jokes from people along the way. He was early enough to be embarrassed, but he also didn't have enough time to go cultivate either. And just sitting around would also be boring. Just as he was hesitating over what to do next, an almost solid murderous aura attacked him. A gust of wind shot straight at Long Chen's back. Hastily turning, Long Chen's fist just managed to block a sneak attacker's punch. Gale winds exploded when they collided, and Long Chen was forced back several steps. Raising his head, he saw a masked man who was sending another punch at him. The man's strength was very great, and the wind whistled with his every blow. Long Chen coldly snorted. Ignoring the punch, he quicked between that person's legs. That person's battle experience was very rich, and he directly stopped this punch and switched to defense, his leg blocking Long Chen's leg. After blocking it, a fierce energy erupted from that person's body. A fist ripped through space and completely cut off Long Chen's retreat paths. Coldness filled Long Chen's eyes. Just as he was about to use all his power, he suddenly thought of something. "Spirit of the Bull!" Long Chen shouted, and their punches collided. He was sent flying dozens of steps, his blood surging tumultuously. Just as that person was about to keep attacking after sending Long Chen flying, he suddenly turned to see the shadows of people approaching them. Kid, next time I'll take your life." He coldly snorted when he saw the pale-faced Long Chen. He disappeared in front of Long Chen's eyes with shocking speed. After he left, Long Chen's pale face once more returned to its normal rosiness. "Idiot, you want to test my power." Long Chen petted the dust off his clothes. Looking in the direction where that person left from, a certain thought arose in his mind. Looks like tonight won't be so boring after all. Chapter 33. End.